In the last 200 years, humankind has learned volumes about the life we enter after we leave the earth plane. People who have made the transition are communicating clearly to us about what happens after the transition and their lives in the life after this life. Their reports prove the fact that we live on after the body ceases to function, and that the people who have gone on before us are very much alive and willing to communicate. The purpose of this presentation is to show you the experiences of ordinary people on the earth plane who have communicated with people in the next realm. The fact is that everyone has or can have afterlife communication. It is a common occurrence. One study found that 70% to 80% of widows and widowers have afterlife experiences with their spouses who have left the earth plane. Two methods being used by psychotherapists in their offices today result in 98% of their clients having afterlife communication with the people for whom they are grieving. A procedure taught in a free online training program enables 86% of those who finish the training to have real, validated afterlife communications. Afterlife communication is a common occurrence in people's lives. But how do we know for certain we continue to live after the body dies? The first reason is that psychotherapists are helping anyone enter a state of mind in which their clients have afterlife communication with the person for whom they are grieving. Alan Botkin, doctor of psychology and Illinois state licensed mental health counselor, formerly at the North Chicago VA hospital, developed a procedure he uses with clients to help them have an afterlife communication with the person for whom they are grieving while they sit with their eyes closed in his office. The procedure, called an Induced After-Death Communication, or IADC, is successful with 70% of clients and is now being used by psychotherapists in 18 countries. I co-authored a book about this method with Dr. Botkin. Two examples from Dr. Botkin's video follow. In the first, a Vietnam veteran describes being taken back to Vietnam in his mind as he sat with his eyes closed in Dr. Botkin's office. After using the IADC procedure, the vet experienced all the sounds and sights of the war. He described his communication with the young Viet Cong boy he killed as the boy was coming at him. He asked the boy to forgive him. This is the veteran's account.
I could smell the earth. I could feel the sunlight on this side of my face. I could smell the quarter. I could smell death. I could smell the blood. I was conscious of the grass cutting me. I was there in every sense of the word. Immediately I began to ask this child to forgive me. And the tears came, great big tears, and my whole body just was racked with emotion. And he told me, without his mouth moving, I could see him as plain as day. I could count the wrinkles on his face. He told me that he had forgiven me.
In this second example, a woman describes her encounter with her loved ones living in the life after this life. With her eyes closed in Dr. Botkin's office, she had a conversation with her father. He tells her that the twin girl in the family, now in spirit, is happy.
Boom, and there's my mom, there's the farm. He did it again, boom, there's my mom, there's the farm, there's my grandparents. And it was like, boom, here was my husband, but it wasn't just him, he was there. There were twin sisters in the family, and one of the sisters passed as a young baby. I didn't know her, and he was there with her. She was like a little child, and he looked at me and he said, "Whew." He said, "She can ride ponies here." And the one thing that as kids, when we went out to the farm, the best thing was to be able to ride ponies when he got there. And it was like he was telling me that she was okay and he was okay, and then, it's all good.
Anyone can have a communication experience with a loved one. Ordinary people enter a psychotherapist's office and, sitting quietly, communicate with those who are living in the life after this life. Rochelle Wright is a certified Washington state licensed mental health counselor, grief therapist, and licensed chemical dependency professional with over 16 years of experience. She refined Dr. Botkin's method in what she calls repair and reattachment grief therapy. Her success rate is over 98%, and the method reduces the client's grief from scores of 10 and 10 plus on a 10-point scale of disturbance to ratings of 0 to 3 in one session. The reason is that the client has a genuine, unmistakable conversation with the person living on the next plane of life. I co-authored a book about Rochelle's method with her. This is one example. A woman named Carol came to Rochelle grieving over her daughter who had been killed in a car accident. This is Carol's description of what happened during her session with Rochelle.
Immediately as my session began, I had headphones on and music playing and was following Rochelle's instructions. My daughter Kate came up in my head. The best way to describe it was my eyes were closed and the visual right away was on the left side of my mind. Kate appeared coming down a sidewalk, and like I said, it was on my left side. There was a wall, and it was beautiful. There was ivy growing out of it and a big old tree. Kate started walking towards me, and it was amazing to have this. I was sitting there with my eyes closed, literally looking at my daughter, Kate, walking towards me. As she walked towards me, she put her hand out, and I was able to put my hand out and feel hers on mine. I was able to feel her fingers, also to hug her and to stroke her hair. She was wearing a t-shirt and shorts and flip-flops like she did when she was alive and she was here on Earth, and it was amazing. She led me down the sidewalk, and we walked, and she was talking, and I couldn't understand what she was saying, but it was just truly amazing that my daughter was literally, I was right there with her. Other than to say that it was real, I don't know how else to explain it. We flashed from walking on the sidewalk to the accident scene, and Kate died on a Sunday night in torrential downpour rain. We went to the accident scene. Kate was in a white dress, and she was right over the center of the street. I could see the lake that was at the accident scene. I could see the guardrail. The rain was on an angle. The visual was unbelievable. It was so clear. It was like I was right there with her. We were literally in the middle of the street. And then we would flash back to the sidewalk. As my connection with Kate was happening, Martine, my girlfriend Linda, who flew to Gig Harbor with me, son, was coming in and out of back and forth with me and Kate. Martine was sitting on his couch in his family room. And he had his leg up on the coffee table, and it's real clear for me still to this day, and he was smiling at me, and he had his arm in a very funny pose. Best way to describe it was like in a monkey pose. I didn't know what that meant. I just kept flashing back and forth. I was kind of confused, but to feel that connection to my daughter, and I knew it was real, was amazing. So I went back and forth with my daughter, Kate, and it would flash to Martine, and Kate I was outside with, and Martine I was inside with. I could, you know, just look at her. It was real. We'd held hands. I hugged her. I stroked her hair. It was truly amazing. I don't know how to describe it other than I know that it was real. I know with confidence today that it was real. And the validation, which I think is one of the most important parts, is that after I left my session and walked back to the hotel, I was describing to Linda Martine's arms in the shape of the monkey pose, going ee and smiling at me. And what I found out is that Martine used to do that with his family all the time. It was something he just did with his sisters and his mom. I didn't know that he did that. So for me, that proved to me and Linda that it was real. So to this day, when I cry and grieve my daughter, I'm not cured and it's not gone away, the pain. But I always know where my daughter is, and she's free and she's happy and she's on the other side. Thank you.
How else do we know for certain we continue to live on after the body dies? People have everyday conversations with their loved ones living in the next plane of life. We have the recordings. They are certified as valid communication with people living on after the body dies, because they are children talking to parents, spouses talking to each other, and parents talking to their children on repeated occasions while sitting with a direct voice medium, Leslie Flint. Today, we have thousands of these recordings. Flint was studied under carefully controlled conditions repeatedly. He was strapped to a chair and had elastoplast tape across his mouth. At one point, he had a throat microphone on to capture any vocalizations. The voices came regardless of the controls. One example of these conversations between loved ones was between Douglas and Eira Conacher, a devoted married couple who had a publishing business in central London. They were conventional in every way but one. They had determined that whoever died first would try to contact the other. Douglas, 20 years older than Eira, died first on June 6, 1958. The recording you are about to hear was made 7 years later, in 1965. Leslie Flint and Eira Conacher are the only ones in the room. Douglas speaks from spirit. As a result of the recordings, Eira published a book of Douglas's communications. In this recording, Eira speaks first.
Yes, well, that's been very interesting, dear. I feel...
Are you coming again very soon?
Well, I hope to. I think Leslie has booked me for about 2 weeks'
I
time.
look forward to it very much.
Yes. I wondered if you would tell me about if you've met any of the naturalists. You were so fond of natural history.
Oh, yes, I have.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
You must always remember that as we have a human life, we have a nature life, and we have birds, we have many of the animals that you associate with life on your side, and I do love colour.
Yes, so do I. Well, you know that.
Full of colour.
Yes.
Magnificent colour.
Yes.
And many colours of which you have no knowledge existed.
Yes.
But sometime I must try and give you a more detailed description, but it is extremely difficult. I'm sorry I can't stay long, but ours are very good today.
You've done very well, darling.
Disappoint you.
Very
I
well.
give you all my love.
I'll be here in 2 weeks, I hope.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, darling.
Bye-bye.
An example of a man speaking with his mother came about when Michael Fearon, a soldier killed in World War II action at Normandy on June 9, 1944, spoke to his mother. In a BBC interview about the recording, Mrs. Fearon said she recognized her son's voice without question. Over several years, she carried on regular, extended conversations with him through Leslie Flint. Michael speaks first.
Satisfactory, obviously. I mean, I love coming to talk to you. It's a wonderful opportunity, and it means so much to me, as indeed it does to everybody who has the opportunity to come to speak to those who they love on earth.
I know.
It would make such a vast difference to people if they understood this and realized that death isn't what they think it is. It isn't this severing contact between us.
There is no death.
It's only an illusion. Man has created death in his own mind.
A third example of a spouse speaking to his partner in spirit occurred repeatedly between 1970 and 1984. Retired Doctor of Chemistry Dr. Dinshaw R. Nanji of Birmingham University visited London twice a year from his home in Gothenburg, Sweden, for private sittings with Leslie Flint, in which he had casual conversations with his wife in spirit, Annie, who passed away in 1966. In this recording of one of the sessions, Annie tells Dr. Nanji she will be with him when he goes to a rose garden the next day to commemorate her birthday.
Hello, darling.
Hello, Sita.
You have come to wish for me a happy birthday tomorrow.
Yes, I wish you a very, very happy birthday, darling.
Well,
You will be
it will be...
71.
That does not seem possible. 71?
Yes.
What is time?
No, not.
It is an illusion.
Yeah.
I would like, for your sake,
Yes.
to have stayed longer
Yes.
on your side, but it was not to be, huh?
Yes.
But I have never been far from you.
Mm.
All these years,
No.
I have been close to you, trying to help you. You know that.
It never will be.
And what will you do tomorrow?
Tomorrow, darling.
Being my birthday? Have you any plans for tomorrow?
Yes, I hope to go to the park.
Ah, you mean to Regent's
Yes.
Park?
Yes. That's right.
You mean where the,
Yes, yes.
where the roses,
Yes, that's
the
right.
roses are, where
Yes.
we used to go.
I like to go.
You like to go there because it brings back many memories.
Yes, many.
But I shall be with you.
Oh, yes.
I shall be with you.
Yes. I hope
And,
the weather will be.
what do you call it? Queen Mary's Rose Garden.
Rose Garden, yes.
Well, I remember.
Oh, it's
I shall be with you.
it's
And there will be some roses.
Well, I hope so.
There will be one special rose, which I will call our rose. Huh?
Ah,
But I will be with you.
very good indeed.
I hope it will be a nice day.
Yes, I hope so.
I hope it will not rain.
No.
Another reason we know with certainty that people live on after the body dies is materializations by physical mediums. A physical medium sits in a room with a circle of people called sitters. During the session, people often materialize and speak to a loved one sitting in the room among the sitters. One of the most accomplished of the materialization mediums is David Thompson. In this recording of one of David Thompson's sessions, several sitters, including a woman named Sarah, were in the room. The person in spirit who comes through is named Nick. He was Sarah's lover before his tragic death. A recording of the encounter follows. Nick has difficulty using the voice box and speaks without being able to make the vocal cords vibrate, so it sounds like he is whispering.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. You're okay.
Yes, you're okay.
You're okay, you're fine.
It's okay.
It's okay.
You're
You're
okay.
safe.
Everything's
You're
fine.
amongst
friends.
You're amongst friends, yeah.
Just remain calm.
Just relax.
Relax.
It's okay.
It's just a bit strange. Yeah.
It is strange, but
Yeah,
it's all right.
You just
Well,
take
it's
a moment to adjust.
Well, it's wonderful that you have.
Can you tell us who you are?
It's Nick.
It's Nick.
Hello, Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Baby.
She did
Sarah's
see Sarah.
Darling, I'm here. Sarah, speak up to him.
Yes, speak to
Nick.
him.
Nick. Yeah, I can, darling. I love you, baby. I love you so much. I love you. Don't ever leave me, okay? I know you're with me. Okay, my baby, just stay close. I love you so much, and you know how grateful I am for you doing this.
You know, all those things that you've bought,
Yeah,
they're gone, they was just lost.
yeah,
They were lost.
yeah.
Don't worry about them. I
Really?
knew you was there. I knew you was there.
Did you, darling? Was I enough for you? I just...
Listen to me, we haven't got long. Listen to me.
Okay, my baby.
Always remember,
Yeah,
I love you with all my heart.
okay.
I told you that just before I left you.
I know.
I'll always be with you, always be with you.
Okay, my darling.
Promise me something.
Yes.
I want you to be happy.
I will for you. I will for you. I'll make the best of what I've got here. For you.
Remember, whatever happens, we'll always be together or we meet again.
You promised me that.
I promise you.
You
Come with my heart, I promise you.
Okay, my darling.
I want you to be happy.
I will try. I am trying. I'm trying so hard. It's just such a shock, you know. But I'm trying hard. I'm doing better. I'm doing better, darling.
You're good. I know you're good. You're doing fantastic.
As long as I've got you with me, and I know I do. I just hope I've done enough for you.
Yes, you did. You was everything I ever wanted.
I was. I'm good. I just wanted to be enough.
That's why I died peacefully.
Oh, thank goodness.
That's why I had that look of peace on my face.
Yes. Did you see me when I went to see you?
I didn't think you put me in the coffin. I saw it all.
Oh, thank you, darling. I tried to do right by you. I tried to do everything I could. I really tried hard.
You done more than any man could ever want. More than any man could ever want.
Okay, my baby. okay, because you know you were worth it. You don't ever doubt how much I loved you and how much I will continue to love you. Don't ever doubt.
I love you.
Okay, my baby. Oh, I love you. I love you.
You okay, Sarah?
Yeah.
Good.
How else do we know for certain we continue to live after the body dies? People who have been dead for years suddenly appear. They're still very much alive. 2 examples follow. In the first, internationally known physician Elisabeth Kübler-Ross describes her dramatic encounter with a patient who had died months earlier. Kübler-Ross was included in Time's 100 most important thinkers of the 20th century. She had 20 honorary degrees and was on the list of the foremost women of the 20th century. She was not subject to hallucinations. I will read the account of her encounter with the so-called dead Mrs. Schwartz that she wrote. The moment the man I had been talking to had entered the elevator, this woman walked straight towards me and said, "Dr. Ross, I had to come back. Do you mind if I walk you to your office? It will only take 2 minutes." This was the longest walk of my life. I was walking next to Mrs. Schwartz, one of my patients, who had died 10 months before. All the way from the elevator to my office, I did reality testing on myself. I said, "I'm tired. I need a vacation. I think I've seen too many schizophrenic patients. I'm beginning to see things." When we reached my door, she opened it with this incredible kindness and tenderness and love. And she said, "Dr. Ross, I had to come back for 2 reasons. One, to thank you and Reverend Gaines for what you did for me. But the other reason I had to come back is that you cannot stop this work on death and dying. Not yet." I looked at her, and I don't know if I thought by then it could be Mrs. Schwartz. I mean, this woman had been buried for 10 months, and I didn't believe in all that stuff. I finally got to my desk. I touched everything that was real. I touched my pen, my desk, my chair, and it's real. I was hoping that she would disappear, but she didn't. She just stood there and stubbornly but lovingly said, "Dr. Ross, do you hear me? Your work is not finished. We will help you, and you will know when the time is right. But do not stop now. Promise?" Yes, I promise. In another example of a loved one materializing and speaking to someone still on the earth, psychologist, physician, and author Dr. Raymond Moody had an encounter with his long-dead grandmother. Dr. Moody is the author of the well-known Life After Life, describing near-death experiences. He has an MD degree and a PhD. He also is not subject to hallucinations. This is what he wrote about the experience with his grandmother. "I had an experience of seeing my grandmother, who had died some years before, just as vividly as I'm seeing you, hearing her voice, just as audibly as I hear yours. Really quite astonishing." There are many other examples of people appearing to someone at the moment of their death thousands of miles away. The person is alive and well in the life after this life, and able to return briefly. How else do we know for certain we continue to live after the body dies? We have many recordings of the voices and images of people living in the life after this life made by researchers. Sonia Rinaldi, M.A., president of the Institute of Advanced Research in Instrumental Transcommunication, twice received the International Hedry Prize from the Swiss Foundation for Parapsychology for innovative research in 1995 and 1997. Sonia records the voices of children answering parents' questions. In one typical month, Sonia connected 163 parents with their children living on the next plane of life, with up to over 200 messages per session. She charges nothing for her work. Some examples of the recordings follow. The people are responding directly to questions, showing they are very much alive. Sonia asks a child in spirit, "Would you like to leave a message to your mother?" The child responds,
"Would you like to leave a message to your mother?"
Mommy, I can talk.
Sonia asks the person from the other side a question.
Here on Earth, we need visa to enter a country. Is it something similar in the space?
That's right.
Sonia also records images of people living in the next life by waving film over a light source. Those communicating to her form the light into images. In one example, Sonia was preparing for a conference in the United States I had invited her to. She decided to contact my mother as the conference organizer to get an image and then a voice. This is the result of her attempt to capture an image of my mother. This is a photograph of my mother. Sonia also attempted to get a recording of my mother's voice to play at the conference. She got the following recording. My mother answers before Sonia asks the question. That is very common in this work because the person in spirit knows the question before the person asks it. The first voice you will hear is my mother. Then you'll hear Sonia's question.
Ready at this point.
Can Mrs. Rosemary say something to Craig?
Another researcher recording the voices of people living in the next plane of life is Reverend Dr. Sheri Perl. Sheri is the author of Healing from the Inside Out and the Outside In, and Lost and Found, a mother connects up with her son in spirit. Sheri is the developer of the Prayer Registry, a website honoring children who have passed. Sheri learned Sonia Rinaldi's recording procedure and now does ITC readings for parents. Examples of Sheri's recordings follow. You'll hear noise that is gibberish in the background. Playing the gibberish gives a meaningless vocal background noise that those in spirit use to create words. In the first, a mother calling into Sheri says hi to her son in spirit. He responds. In the second, Sheri asks her son in spirit to say, I love you, Mom.
Danny, can you say, I love you, Mom?
A mother called in to have Sheri record her child's voice for her. She asks if the child still loves her.
I love you, and I just want to know, do you still love me?
I love you.
A mother asks her son if he's at peace.
Adam, it's Mom. I want to know, are you at peace?
Sheri was using noise as a background for the recordings and was trying a background of a Portuguese voice, scrambled so there were no words. She asks anyone in spirit to respond about whether she could use the Portuguese jumbled words as background.
Say something to me in English to let me know I should use this.
I speak in English.
Otto König of Belgium created technology that allows him to communicate with people living at the higher levels of life. He also captures images of people now living in the life after this life. In a demonstration at a conference, König had this image appear on a monitor. The person in the picture was recognized by a woman in the audience. It was her childhood friend who had died in World War II. The woman provided König with a picture of the man demonstrating that he lives on long after his death. In the following recordings of people living in the higher realms of life, König receives profound messages in German. Translations of the German follow each recording.
Verbindung zu uns im Fenster zum Rüberkennzeichen und Lassen euch erahnen, dass ihr erleben könnt, wenn ihr euch eröffnet. Die Erde soll jetzt in einen neuen Bewusstseinszustand versetzt werden. Ihr Bewusstseinsvermögen soll angehoben werden.
These recordings of people long dead are further evidence that those who have left the earth plane are living on in the next realm of life. All of their responses were to the questions asked by parents and researchers. Because of the reality that people live on after the body dies, many parents, children, and spouses are learning how to communicate with their loved ones in the life after this life. Many have written books describing their communication. One example is Carol Morgan. Her son, Mikey, died tragically. She learned that she could communicate by allowing him to control the movements of a pendulum. As a result, she now regularly has communication sessions with him. Through Carol, Mikey has written a book about life in the afterlife called Flying High in Spirit. Her son was a snowboarder. Carol uses a pendulum to communicate. Other parents use meditation, self-hypnosis, and other methods. In this video, Carol shows how Mikey in spirit manipulates the pendulum.
Okay, so on the forum, he gives me answers pretty quickly. And what I do is when I get the first letter, I can hear him telling me the word in my head. And so that's how I move along pretty quickly, and I want to give an example of that. So Mikey, let's just give one example of how we do this. I'm going to have you start. Go to the first letter of what you want to say. He's pulling up to the M, circling it yes. I'm going to spell this word out, though I hear it well. M-O-M. Mom. First word is mom. He's pulling up to the letter P. Circling it yes. I'm hearing the word please. He's saying yes. That's the second word. So mom, please. He's pulling down to the T. Is it tell? Yes. Mom, please tell. Circles the E. Please tell everyone. Circles the letter F, or the letter L, sorry. Clockwise. Life. I'm hearing the word life. G. Gives. Is that correct? Yep. Life gives. O. Opportunity. Correct. Give me the second letter to confirm. Yep, he pulls up to the P. Yep. Life gives opportunity. For, is that, circle the letter F. Yep, for. Circles the letter S. I'm hearing the word spiritual. He says that's correct. Now he's going to the G. Circles the G. Growth. Life gives opportunity for spiritual growth. Big yes. Next thing he wants to say is, goes to the letter L. I'm hearing the word love. He says yes to the word love. And he's pulling up now to the letter I. Love is. Pulls down to the letter T. I'm hearing the word the. Love is the. And he says yes. Going to the letter A. I'm hearing the word answer. He confirms it yes. Love is the answer. Let's go to the letter M again. Mom. Tell. Going to the T. Is it tell? Yep. Tell them. Another T. Is that correct? Tell them. Going to the O. Openness. Yep. It's pulling up to the P. Tell them openness. Openness. He goes up to the G. I'm hearing the word gives. Openness gives. A, circling the letter A. Is it awareness? Openness gives awareness. A, and Openness gives awareness, and he's pulling up to the H. H. I'm hearing the word hope. Is that correct? And hope. F. Is it for? Gives hope for. R. E. Renewal. There's hope for renewal. So openness gives awareness and hope for renewal. So that's Mikey's message.
How else do we know for certain people live on after the body dies? People today are being trained to communicate with their loved ones. The Afterlife Research and Education Institute has created a training program that teaches people how to enter a state of self-hypnosis in which they have conversations with loved ones in the next realm of life. They speak with them, hold hands, embrace, and even kiss in these sessions. I will read one of the many examples that validate the connections, written by an experiencer about her connection. She began by speaking with her father. Then she saw a young girl. This is what she wrote. Then I saw a young girl, teenager. She had familiar features. The name Brenda came to me and I realized it's a friend of mine's daughter. She died in a rollover crash. She hovered with me, morphing a bit, so I saw her in different stages, ages. I saw her exploring. I saw her as a student studying. I don't know that she did that on Earth, but she is now that she's passed. I heard her say, "I love Mom. I miss Mom." I asked in my mind, how can you miss her? You're always with her. But she missed doing things with her. I saw some food item rolled. It looked like a lobster roll, but with jalapenos. I was focused on it too much and it disappeared. I looked to the side and saw her as a little girl rolling out dough, working on a red checked tablecloth, working so hard. She was darling. Then I realized, oh, she misses doing this stuff with her mom. At least that's what I got from it. In a later email to the center, the participant wrote this. Well, howdy do. I wrote Lauren, mother of the little girl in the Afterlife Connection, and told her the first part of it, and how confused I was with the roll-ups that had jalapenos in them. I kept thinking, what on earth? So I wrote Lauren, unsure of how much to tell her. I can never remember who's a believer and who isn't. Guess what? She writes back and says it makes sense to her. Yes, they made jalapeno roll-ups. What? I've never heard of such a thing. Look, if I ever thought I was making this stuff up, well, I completely believe now. Where the hell did jalapeno roll-ups come from? Everyone has had or can have an afterlife contact. Today we're doing it commonly, and we're finding new ways of making connections regularly. These connections by ordinary people are the firmest evidence of what we who study the subject know without doubt to be true. We continue to live happily and vibrantly after the body ceases to function.